Okay. There we go. Sorry about that, those who are viewing or whatever. But then as I realized, I thought more and more, I thought we all have different levels of encounters with God. We all have different connectedness with God, and we grow in our connectedness. Like Laurie said in her message, we all have doors that are gradually getting opened. And so if 99% of your doors are open and tonight another one gets open, then woohoo, thank you, Jesus. And I might only have 10 doors open, or 10%, but if I can help somebody open up one more door to hearing God's voice. As I was praying about this morning, I felt like I just want to share, he wanted me to share a little bit of my testimony. Because when Laurie was sharing during her message about her hearing God's voice, I went through something very, very similar. I lose track of time. You do when you get older, because years pass much quicker than they did when you were younger. But it was a few years ago that I went through a very, very dark wilderness. It wasn't caused by any tragedy. It wasn't caused by anything except for a stupid prayer that I prayed that I wanted basically, to make a long story short, I prayed a prayer that I would become as desperate for God as a drowning man was desperate for air. And I had no idea how desperate that was. And I began this, I call it a descent, but I don't know that it was necessarily a descent, where I got more and more desperate for him, and I felt like I heard him less and less. Felt like when I read the Bible, it was just reading a manuscript. And I like to read encyclopedias. It's even worse than reading encyclopedia. I'm one of those crazy people. I'll pick up a dictionary, read a dictionary and encyclopedia for fun. And it was still, I just couldn't, nothing was resonating with my soul. Oh, stuff resonated with my mind, but nothing really connected with my spirit. And when I prayed, I just felt like it didn't, like I was talking to a brick wall. And I just got more and more desperate. And I'd hear other people. Butch would get done with his verses. Whenever I'd wake up, I'd be on my side, and I could see him in his chair reading his Bible, and it was comforting in a way. But the more and more he would say about how God spoke to him that morning, it was like I didn't even want to hear it. I'm tired of hearing it. I felt like the spurned child having to hear what the favorite child gets to do with that. And I started to believe more and more that God just spoke to certain people. And then most of you know, I don't know if you know, I guess, is your name Scott? Okay. You're probably the only one who doesn't know I have 10 children. And I always loved having children. I've had 6 miscarriages. And after my 9th one was born, I had 2 miscarriages for him, then my 9th one was born, and then I had another 2 miscarriages. And I just asked, I don't want to end on miscarriages. And I prayed for another child for 5.5 years, about 5.5 years, because I'd have to get the dates right. But anyway, and then in spring of 2009, I found myself pregnant. And it was after 5 years of just thinking I probably wouldn't, getting too old. And 5 weeks later, I miscarried. And it was, I was used to miscarrying. I had miscarried, but each one got harder. And I laid on a couch just sobbing. And I was like, God, I don't really necessarily want this baby back, but I want to feel you. I can't go through this valley one more time without feeling your presence. I just need to feel you here. And I felt absolutely nothing. And it seemed like every time I would come up against something, it was just like he wasn't there. I remember a friend of mine was sharing in church. She shared a testimony. She got up and she said that she had asked God just to show her some measure of his love. She was kind of feeling down. She just wanted to feel God's love. And as she finished the prayer, somebody drove in her lane to be that answer to the prayer. And I know I probably shouldn't have done this, but I came home and I threw my Bible up the stairs. It didn't go all the way up because I wasn't really trying to get upstairs. I was just so angry. I said, I've been praying for 2.5 years to feel some measure of your presence. And this person prays it, and within seconds you answer. That's not fair, God. And it was sometime in this whole process that he reminded me of that prayer. And I thought it was kind of, I don't know, I guess it gave purpose to my wilderness. So if you've felt there, and if you're listening and you've been there, I know exactly what that feels like. I know what it feels like because I was this close to deism. Deism is a belief that there is a God, that he set things in motion and then withdrew to let things happen as they would, basically in nutshell form. And I thought, I can't deism is about the only thing I accept, because my relationship with you just is non-existent, and I am trying. And when I hear people say, well, if you're feeling distant from God, guess who moved? I'm like, I haven't moved. And if I have, please tell me. I mean, if I'm going in the wrong direction, at least you could give me directions how to get back to where you are. And heaven was always silent, no matter what I went through. Until I had my sozo. And that changed everything. It seems like I said, I don't think I realized how big it was until later. And it gives me hope when I'm leading sozo sessions that doesn't seem that big of a deal. But there was one part in my sozo session, I don't know if I've shared this with many of you or not, but there was one place that I saw this fence and there was a man on the other side playing with children, and I knew it was Jesus. And I wanted to come over, and I couldn't because he said I was a piece of trash. Well, Jesus doesn't say those things. I know that now. And I don't remember what Laurie did. I just remember we went back, did some healing, we came back, and the gate sprung open wide. He did like most dads do. He just got down on it, and I ran and just picked me up, twirled me around. And my relationship has grown since then, and I've had some amazing encounters. But I know what that feels like, to feel like your prayers hit the ceiling and everybody else is hearing from God. And you're desperate for some connection with Him. And I felt in some ways some of that, but that's my new floor now, that I know that He's there. There's times I feel distance, but never as low as that, because when He answered that, it just gave me another level to stand on. And I think that's kind of how our connectedness is. We might feel some distance, but we're never going to go lower than the last word He gave us, the last encounter that he spoke to us. And I think sometimes, as I was thinking about this too, sometimes I set myself up, I want grand encounters. I want something really big. But if you think about it, if you're married, you might, we never have, but we keep hoping to. You might go on this 2-week cruise, or a weekend getaway, or just last summer, fall, I can't remember what it was, he had to take a part of his combine up to PA, and so it was just a quick trip for him to go drop that off or pick it up, and we just spent the night at Hershey Farms, and you have those. Or I might just have a ride on the tractor with him, or just sometimes a wink across the room. And all those are encounters with the person you love, aren't they? They do something to you. You connect with that person. We're at a place, and I know that they say date nights are important, but we don't have to have date nights necessarily. It's nice when they come along. It's nice in those quick getaways or weekend getaways. But if we can connect on a soul-to-soul level just in the course of a day. So I challenge you to really think about encounters with God in that way. Because sometimes you're going to have something that's equivalent to a cruise, Mediterranean or Alaskan cruise. And it just lasts long, it's phenomenal, and it just wrecks you. And other times, this might be a wink across the room. And it's learning to look for those little encounters, because you have multiple little encounters for every one big encounter. At least that's been my experience. So, and hearing from God, connecting with God, and we know, it's familiar to most of us, that we hear in pictures. Some people see pictures. I remember, I don't know if Dean was there or not. We did the sozo in person, and whenever we'd ask a question, they asked for a piece of paper to draw the answer. They saw so much in pictures. I tend to hear in words. Some people get senses. So you're different. Your relationship with God is different, and you hear differently. And don't discount anything you're hearing as, well, that's not that big of a deal. That really wasn't what I was looking for. I wouldn't tell my husband, well, I was really wanting a cruise when we got away for a day just to drop a combine part off in Lancaster. It was enjoyable. I enjoy it while we get it. So now I've encountered this question in trainings, and I've encountered it often in sozo sessions and people wanting encouragement. How do I know what voice I'm hearing? How do I know? In some ways, I really feel like I'm talking to the choir here, but anyway. And as I asked that question, wrote it down, I remember one time in a training, the answer came just like that. I felt like I was supposed to share how you tell. And then somebody asked me about a month later, I'm like, I don't even remember what I said at that time. And so I found myself out, well, how do I know? There are really 3 voices that can speak to us. We know that. It can be God, it can be the enemy, and it can be our own voice. It can be us. And that's what I hear lots of times. How do I know it's God or just me? And how do I really know? Well, we know it's the enemy because it comes with condemnation. it doesn't, it makes us feel bad or shame or guilt. It just has a negative connotation to it. And he doesn't have any good stuff to say. If it's encouraging, it is not the enemy. If it's helping you stand a little longer, it is not the enemy. If it's saying you can't do this, maybe you ought to quit, maybe it's time to turn, that might be the enemy. I mean, it's probably the enemy who's wanting you to quit. It's the enemy. But the hardest voice to hear is if it's God or if it's me. And lots of times, if I think it's me, his spirit is in me. And I have a new mind, a new nature, a new spirit. And so I go with it and see where it goes. And often his spirit speaks to us. It's not necessarily, Tammy, I want you to do such and such. Or it's usually, I feel like I ought to do this. Or maybe just, a thought that comes to my mind is something I ought to do. He rarely speaks to me in first person. I want you to do whatever. I want you to. It's just he brings a person's mind. He doesn't say, I want you to pray for your sister. She needs encouragement now. It's I ought to pray for my sister. Maybe I ought to text her, see how she's doing. Okay? It's not. And we miss some of those things. I do anyway, sometimes miss it. Another thing I've noticed, his voice or my voice, his voice comes with some measure of tangible hope. Mine might just be wishful thinking. And there's still times I have trouble discerning. Is this hope or is this wishful thinking? I'm in the process of trying to discern a calling. And I'm trying to figure, is God calling me to this, or is it something I want to do? Is it something I'm trying to usurp? Or is my discomfort because it's contrary or different than the way I was raised? And so there are times I can't really distinguish wishful thinking and tangible hope. And so I just keep seeking him on it. And I keep, and I can be pretty, I think I'm feeling a call towards some sort of pastoral role. And yet what I've always been told is women can't be pastors. So, and I like to stir the pot. And so, am I trying to stir the pot? Am I not trying? Is my hesitancy my background? But what I've decided was, I'm having trouble discerning, is this hope when I'm speaking? Because it brings excitement. It does. It brings a resonancy, if that's a word. Not residency, just resonates in the deepest part of my soul. But I'm also saying, well, God, I'm going to walk in this way. I'm going to start walking here because I want what you want. And I'll follow this voice, assuming it's you until you direct me otherwise. Do you take me? Or you show me. If there's some part of my heart that I'm trying to usurp this role, or something that I'm trying to cast off or trying to rebel against prior teaching, then show it to me because I want to know it. But I'm walking. So I encourage people, if you're not really sure if it's you or him, obey it. Walk in it. It'll generally, at some point in time, you're going to either hit a dead end or you're going to come to an affirmation or validation of your path or whatever it is he's told you. The biggest thing to keep in mind with that when we're looking for encounters and hearing God's voice is to look for the small and embrace the small and steward the voice you hear. So I've got this voice going on inside of me trying to discern, and I'm going to steward every voice I hear. And so there are times that I get a sense from him on what he wants me to do, and it is so strong, I feel like I'm disobeying him. If I know, and you've all experienced that. You know that if you don't do it, you're disobeying God. It's so strong. But there's other times it just feels like a suggestion. And I think if that's just me, is there really any harm if it's me getting this thought, oh, I'll text my sister and encourage her? No. And so I store the voices that I get. There are times, I'll be honest, that I don't really like what I hear. Usually that's going to be God, because I'm not going to tell myself to do something that I really don't want to do. Something that would cause me to say, I don't think, where would I get an idea like that would really cause my insides to turn? I don't think I can do that if it's a good thing. But whatever, no matter how small you get, just store it and thank him for it and press in for more. And don't be discouraged or disappointed by the winks you get from God. I'm at a place now in my walk with Him. I can feel His presence right here. It's like I'm going about my day, and I'm not necessarily talking to Him, but all I can do is turn and catch His eye. Almost like you can feel. I can often feel when Butch walks in the door. I can just feel His presence, and so I can feel His presence. He's there. But I don't have a whole lot of big encounters. Sometimes the big encounters scare me. I had one that it just messed me. I woke up with this knot in the pit of my stomach. Usually something I get when I want to argue with somebody, or I used to get when I would just feel like I had to answer somebody. Somebody's wrong on Facebook, I had to correct them, kind of a thing. But there was none of that. There was nothing I was chewing on. I just woke up with this knot, and what is this, God? And the more I pressed into, the more I realized it was His presence, and I ended up in a puddle of tears. I just went downstairs and knelt there and just wept and wept and wept, and I just completely just spent time in His presence, and it just was just a good, sweet time. But yet, for a little bit, what was that? And then when I read Bill Johnson's his encounter when he asked God when he was seeking God's face, I was like, oh, it was very, very mild compared to that. and so those are good times, and I embrace them when they come. But I'm finding myself more and more embracing those little winks that God gives us, and steward them. Before I get into any activation, do we have any questions? I mean, or things that something that came to your mind that you want to add? And I've been, just in the last while, I've experienced something that when you're trying to minister to somebody, that was one of my biggest things during my wilderness too, was like, I have enough natural talent, and my personality and my giftings, I could teach and encourage and exhort people just naturally, because that's just the way He made me. But I was tired of being my own words. I was tired of I wanted to know that it was Him. And that was part of my prayer through that whole wilderness time. Part of what motivated me to seek Him, to know Him more. But I'm the type of person that I love praying for people, but I would prefer they come to me. I would prefer you have a prayer line, prayer servants come up, and I stand, and so people can come to me to pray. When I'm standing here and people come up to the altar, and I got to figure out who to go to, it just makes me really uncomfortable. What if I don't know what to say? What if I don't know what to pray? Because people who are really spiritual know exactly what to pray. They don't have to ask you what to pray. And so I've been holding back from doing that. I think if somebody comes and asks me to pray, I'd gladly pray for them. But I don't know who to go to up there. I don't know. And I'd ask him, just highlight somebody. And it just didn't seem like that was happening. And so because I was holding back, I could feel myself disconnecting more and more and more. And I didn't really see it as disobeying His voice, but I wasn't heeding it either. And I was praying about it one day. I was just asking about this disconnectedness. He said, I designed you to go after people. I designed you to minister to people. And you're hanging back. You're not designed for that. Don't worry. Maybe it was like He was saying, don't worry if you don't know exactly what to pray. Ask them what to pray. It's not the worst thing in the world. And once you get going, often once I get going, then it's like the spigot's turned on, and then it can keep flowing. But I can forget about that. So it's a way of me shutting off His voice to other people, and it made me feel disconnected with people and with Him, and knowing. Some people would prefer to stand there. I know there are people who prefer to stand there and who see who God highlights and go to them rather than stand up here and just look at everybody and wait for somebody to come to them. And so as part of it's, our personalities and our strengths and gifts, and God's designed us each different ways. But that was just something really recent that I'd kind of shut down His voice, and some disconnection resulted from it. And so when He told me, I designed you to minister to people. So kind of cleared that up. Anybody? It is, right. Anybody? Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're hearing something like that, you know it's the enemy, then just go the opposite. You know that's truth. You go after that. I experienced that this morning. I woke up realizing I had to be here tonight, and I was almost a puddle of tears. I felt just like, I can't, Lori, why did you? I was really overwhelmed, and it's like, but I'm learning that when I start to feel overwhelmed, or I can't do this, I am not the person for doing this, then I know that's the enemy. And I'm like, fine, I don't know if I'm the best person for the job, but I am not going to let you deter me this time. And usually the stronger the feeling, there's more reason to fight it. And recognizing if the enemy is telling you not, to do something, I can't do this, then God has something in there for you to do it, to go for it, to go after the opposite, like you said. That is very common to me. Yeah. And it's like if I'm ministering to somebody else, it's like I can hear him. But sometimes when I'm trying to answer for myself, there's a whole bunch of static. And I have to take an extra effort to center myself. That's a new age term. I got to center myself, but I don't sit in yoga style. But and purposely focus on him, and that's when I'll often envision another guided imagery. I just picture him sitting there with me and talking to them, rather than feeling like I'm just talking in empty space. Or I'll ask somebody else. Then I'll just go ahead and because he can speak. Sometimes it's because he wants to speak to you through somebody else. And a lot of it really is the doubts the enemy keeps planting that I really can't hear for him for myself. And when you come to partner with that, it makes it harder to think you can hear from him for yourself, because you're hearing him if you're hearing from everybody else. And part of the problem too is I think that it's when I'm in a soul session, if I'm ministering to somebody else and I'm encouraging them and they're hearing, I can say, well, yeah, that's God. But for myself, maybe that's my own voice. And I don't know how many times I told somebody else, well, if it's good, don't worry about it. And then I got to take the advice myself. Well, if it's good, don't worry about it. Just write it down and meditate on it. And after a while, the enemy will get tired of, I call it static for me. It's kind of a static that comes in. You realize this isn't working anymore. I got to find another tactic. And a lot of it is perseverance and knowing. See, this is what's changed for me more than anything else. I now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he's speaking to me. And that there has to be cleared up. And we have to be firmly convinced that he is speaking, that he is talking to us. Because if we're not sure he's really talking to us personally, if we either quit or we just don't think, well, I'm not going to. And it's not that it's my fault that I'm not hearing. There's a door shut, something shut down. But he is talking, and God is always talking, and he's always good. I could bring up the core Sozo core values, but that's one of the biggies. If you're trying to connect with God, you have to know that he's talking to you all the time. It's kind of like there are a lot of, well, this metal roof, there probably aren't too many radio waves in here. I don't know. There's no internet signal in here. I know that. There's radio waves all over the place, just tuning into it. There's a radio frequency for him speaking to you, and it's a matter of just tuning into it. and not feeling there's something wrong with you, or that you have to do something. You have to prove something to him. Anybody else have anything to add? Another way that God speaks to us, and it might seem can anyway, and Laurie brought it up in her her message, is when you feel pain. And the enemy wants us to think that the pain we're feeling is truth. So I'm feeling like God is distant, therefore he must be distant. That's what the enemy wants us to think. And we can go to the in our elevating the rational mind, we've gone to the other extreme and saying, well, it's not true, just don't worry about it, don't think about it. Well, if I'm feeling distant from God, if I'm feeling some sort of emotional pain, the thought that comes with it is probably a lie, that God is distant, or nobody likes me, or I can't do this, whatever it is. But the pain is very real, and the pain is a sign that something's going on. And so God might be trying, God doesn't cause pain. That's not. But if we press into the pain, why am I feeling distant from God? And not parting the lie, but not allowing our rational mind saying, well, it's not a lie, discount it. Okay? No, there's something going on if I'm feeling this emotion. All right, God, Papa, what is it? Why am I feeling so distant from you? Have I not to mix images, but have I opened up a door that shouldn't be opened? Am I holding some bitterness? Why am I feeling so distant? When did I start feeling distant from you? Or if it's a feeling of people just don't like me. When I go somewhere, I feel nobody likes me. Usually that's a reflection of how I feel about myself. So why am I feeling so down on myself? Rather than just going with it and thinking, well, nobody likes me here anyway, or, well, that's not true, don't worry about that. No, just allow God to reveal himself to me through my pain, rather than just ignoring them. I was a big one for ignoring emotions, because I felt like emotions served no purpose except to manipulate people. If they were any good at all, just to manipulate everybody. And I was determined I was a preschooler, I decided I wasn't going to feel any emotions ever again. They were weak, useless. That's some promise to make as a preschooler. Kept that promise for about 40 years, to the best of my ability. Except anger. But even anger is an emotion that God wants to speak to us through. All right. Anybody thinking anything? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And rather than, okay, I need to go back to sleep. Well, God, if you woke me up for a purpose, he did that. He woke me up out of sound sleep, downloaded an entire sermon to me. Just this whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. 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 That's a good word. I mean, how many times we sat at a stoplight and kissed our spouse? That's a connection with our spouse. And it's just a quick connection, the same with God. We can check in with God. And that's a good word. It's good. And a lot of it is pursuing and allowing a hunger to develop in us to really pursue his voice. And in saying that, I always want to be careful to anybody listening or anybody that I'm not saying that If you're not connecting with him, it's not because you're not hungry enough. And there's no fault in us. There's nothing wrong with us that we're not hearing his voice, that we're not connecting with him. It's not like he's not sitting up there saying, well, when you get hungry enough to hear my voice, well, then I'll start talking to you. There's just something that our hunger does. As it grows, it turns us to him more and more. That's what causes us to sit at a red light and say and check in with God. And it just focuses us it's like if you really want, this is a lousy analogy, if you have a yearning for a certain type of pizza, you don't mind driving an extra 30 miles because they're the ones that got the pizza that you're hungry for right then. But sometimes it takes getting very, very desperate too, and that's not God causing the desperation. He's allowing it to grow because he's salting our oats. He's allowing it to grow, but he's not withholding from us. Not withholding at all. My daughter's just been through for her it was harrowing. Well, it would have been very frustrating. 2 years ago, she got her nurse's degree. She graduated, passed the board the first try, and she felt like the Lord wanted her to move over to Baltimore without a job and trust him. And it was 2 years. She kept applying and applying and applying and applying. And she had this, all she get was waitress jobs, and she hates waitressing, or she did. She tolerates it now. And it ended up she broke her foot, couldn't work for 8 to 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and it was like every now and then she'd just call and just be so frustrated. But she had as a foundation, I know that God called me here. She knew that when she heard that voice, that one time, she knew. And just recently, she got hired by Mercy Hospital. It's one of the top training hospitals in the nation, and they encourage them to pray with their patients and minister healing with them. Right? They recognize that God is the ultimate healer. They do mission trips, and they invite their employees along on mission trips. It's perfect for her. But through all that time, she had to keep questioning, did I hear you right? Did I hear you right? Did I hear you right? And we kept telling her, and that's what I tell anybody. You go on the last word you heard, you keep going until he tells you different. And unless that next word is as firm as the last one, you just stick with it. Because the enemy wants nothing more than to raise doubts in our mind that we can hear God's voice. And he wants to create doubts that maybe I didn't hear him correctly then. Because if I have a doubt that I heard him incorrectly there, it's going to make me slower to act this time.
Part of that too, when we see ourselves in that place where it feels like God is just, if I see myself as David, then I'm blaming him in silence.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. In the absence. And when you say you're turning, your heart is in the right place. Your heart is turned toward an encounter rather than starting to build walls because you're not sure you're going to have another one. And that's what we do sometimes. Mm-hmm. Oh God, yeah. Yeah. I was thinking something as you're just left that quick. Oh, well, if it's supposed to say it, then it'll come up again, right? Don't worry about that. It would be interesting if people who are listening could send in questions, wouldn't it?
At least after this, she's been sending some tests.
Okay. I did want to do a little bit of an activation, and all about connecting with God, so we're going to have time of connecting with God. Laurie said, it's just like a group sozo. It's all right. It's fine. about freaked out. Then I was like, you do them all the time in trainings. So the Lord has really, really stretched me through the whole process of sozo and this type of, it's like, it used to be when I would talk, I would have it all written down, everything I was going to say, and the whole, I would practice it. If you look at my notes, there's about that much. It's like he's saying, trust me, trust me, trust me. And I was just feeling some of these things this morning, and my son, he's 5 years old, has a fear of dogs. But my sister-in-law and brother-in-law live next door, and he went to bed last night saying, I'm going to go over to Kevin's house in the morning. And I said, well, we'll see. He gets up at 7:30, he's up. Can I go over to Kevin's house now? I'm like, no, it's a little too early. Hour and a half, every 5 minutes. Can I go over to Kevin's house now? Can I go over to Kevin's house? Finally, I said, yeah, you can go over. And I texted Grace that he's on his way, but she has 2 dogs. So he was right back within minutes. He said, I went over and I hollered, nobody answered. And I said, well, did you go to the door? Well, no. I said, why? Because I'm scared of the dogs. I said, well, you can, that's all right. And so he tried again. He came back just in tears, so distraught. Can't you go with me? I said, no, I'm not going to go with you. I'm busy, but you're not alone. Jesus is with you. Yeah, but he's up in the sky. And I said, no, he's with you more than I am. You just can't see him. And he said, I'm scared. But I said, that's okay. It's okay to be scared. Doesn't mean you're not brave. So we're having this whole conversation. 3 times he kept trying to go over, and he'd come back, and he wondered, can he ride on the road? And I said, yeah, you can ride on the road because it's only, what is it, 50 yards maybe? It's not very far, 30 yards. Just watch for cars, and he'd come back in tears. So I just encouraged him and prayed with him. I said, you can do this. I said, you're fine. Jesus is right with you. In fact, why don't you, when you go on your bike, ask Jesus where he is. Ask him if he'll walk with you. And then I didn't hear him for a while. I went downstairs, and I watched him. He would go about 20 feet and then stop and look back at the house. And then go another 5 feet and look, put his head in his hands. And he kept doing this. And finally I said, you're fine. Jesus is with you. You're fine. And after I got about 3/4 of the way over, then Grace came out to meet him. I no sooner closed my front door when God said, that was you this morning. You're so scared. All you got to do is be faithful. You got this. And I'm going to be with you. You told him you're going to be with you, whether you're going to be with him. And if you're not going to believe it, well, how do you expect a 5-year-old to believe it? So that was just an encounter today, this morning, that he said, you got this. You can do this. And those types of things are really, so look for encounters in your everyday conversations too. Just allow him to speak to you through things, just through that encounter with my 5-year-old. And it's really, when you start looking for encounters, I think you'll have them everywhere. And you start just turning toward expecting them, allowing it to grow. And then you build on it. So now that creates more faith in me. You think all the sozo sessions I've had, where I didn't know what to do. I mean, how many of us ever know what to do when we walk into a sozo session? We have no idea what's going to happen in there. And yet God always shows up. And so it's faith building. So now I have that added to his voice. That picture of my son, my 5-year-old, and what I was encouraging him, and those words coming back to me, God's voice reminding me of that. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to have you close your eyes. Now, if you're a person who likes to open your eyes, that's fine. I won't make you close your eyes. I don't believe in control. Well, I like it, but I don't. And Laura used the analogy of doors, having doors closed. And I do believe that we all have multiple doors that we've shut at some point in time of our lives. And a lot of our doors might be open. You may have more doors open than I have. You may be hearing from God on a more regular basis than I am. And you may be more convinced, but you still have doors. You still have areas of your heart that God wants to open and enter and reveal himself to you. And so what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. And you can use your own words. You can repeat after me. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to ask, Papa, is there a door in my heart that you want open to you tonight? search of a door may not be what you need. You may just want to ask him if there's an area of your heart that's been shut off to him. And then just ask him, Papa, when did this door get shut? When was this part of my heart shut down to you? Something that happened may have come to mind, a situation, maybe just a person's face, or just a time period in your life, or it may be very clear, you know exactly what it is. And maybe vague. If it's vague, just ask him for just a little bit more. What we need to do is we need to forgive the people who are involved, anyone who is involved in that. Just choose to forgive this person. To forgive the situation that caused you to shut your heart down. Then we need to just repent. I repent of shutting this door, shutting myself off to you. And I forgive myself for that. And today, Papa, I open this door to my heart. I invite you in to bring healing, truth. Ask if there's anything you come to believe in that area that's a lie. Is the truth that you want me to know? Now, if you're having trouble hearing, what I want you to just invite him to, and like you're going to picture him. So either, or Jesus, you can even do Jesus. I find people can talk with Jesus just more readily, and they're all the same person. And so just invite him there, and I want you to picture him. Papa, I just ask you to reveal yourself, and let anyone who's having trouble all of us, just to be able to see you in a moment here. I want you to talk to him face to face. Now I want you to ask him a question. Papa, what do you see when you look at me? If he's still talking, you just stay there. And if you feel like you've gotten what you need, I know they might want to share anything that Papa said. You just want to sit there with him for a while. Maybe there's more questions you'd like to ask him. Anybody get a wink from Papa God? Or maybe a ride on the tractor. We want to spend some more time talking to him some more. What do you think? That's all I have, but I don't know if anybody wanted to add anything or thing when you're doing a group sozo. If you've ever done one, you have no idea what's going on in the room. You can see faces, and you can kind of see what's. Of course, it's just a few people. It's not too hard to make it a little bit personal, but still, it's kind of hard to They couldn't hear any of the comments you guys made. I should have repeated them. I used to do that. Okay, yeah. And my hair kept going on the mic. I could hear that.
Well, I scared myself. I've learned that as a spiritual being, it's interesting that we actually hear with our eyes and see with our ears. Oftentimes, the Lord shows me something, I begin to hear what He's saying. Or sometimes I'll hear a word and I can see what He's talking about. So in the hearing I saw and in the seeing I heard.
Right.
Those are the two gates that come into us, but there's also, I've learned, the nose. And there is a smell that suddenly becomes, oh, that's you. I smelled it. I never smelled when you smell them, you know it's in. And those are the three ways that He's given us, just physically, that are also spiritual things. In that fragrance of Christ that's talked about, there is also this heart response that's connected to the fragrance, not the ear or the eye, the heart. It's, oh, hey, something. So I think oftentimes, like in Sozos too, when we hear something, we go, oh, I can see now. Just because you heard something, you didn't see it before, but
Yeah.
or He reveals some door, and you go, oh, I can hear He's saying it. So I think sometimes we need to remember that, because it's not just, I've said many times saying, what are you saying? What are you saying? Please say something. Please say something. What are you saying? What are you saying? To the point where I don't know why He doesn't say, please. I'm going to sleep now. Let me know when you're going to quit asking that question. But if you just hold steady with Him, there's an intake, whether it's sight, hearing, fragrance, that brings about another response that lets you know He's there, He's in it.
Yeah. It's good. You said just close the prayer? Or you just, don't matter. Papa, I just thank You. There's so much gratitude in my heart that we can actually talk with You, that You want us to converse with You, to talk with You. You want encounters with us as more than we want encounters with You, I believe. And I thank You for that. I thank You for the encounters that we've had, the times that You've revealed Yourself to us, the times that You've spoken into our hearts and our minds, brought clarity, brought peace, brought conviction, brought confidence, brought hope. Your voice in our lives is so powerful. And I thank You that You are so eager for us to hear You. I thank You that Your voice never stops speaking, that You don't ever give us the silent treatment. I pray, Father, that we would come to look for encounters with You. Little ones, big ones, in the mundane and in the exciting things in life. That we would expand our concept of what an encounter with You is like. That we would be hungry for You, more and more hungry for You. Papa, would You just continue to reveal to us those things that might be hindering any connection we might have with You. Deepen our connection with You. We're all at different places, and that's fine. It's a process of learning to hear Your voice, learning to recognize Your voice. And I thank You that it's a process that You don't get impatient with, even though we sometimes get impatient with. We tend to get more impatient with You than You are with us. And as I pray for patience and perseverance, Father, there are two things that I pray for with every fiber of my being. I pray, Father, that we would be convinced, that we would know that we know that we know that you are reaching out to us, that you are speaking to us. And that knowledge, that confidence will keep us pursuing, will keep us tearing down, taking down whatever barriers to your voice that there might be, that we would look for those things that might be hindering your voice and be aware of them. That we would be sensitive to the things that might prevent you. That we would be sensitive to obey, not so that we fulfill some law, but because we want that your voice to continue. We want to be able to keep that communication open. But I also pray, Father, that if there's anybody that needs, well, we all need greater connection, but that you would in a supernatural way speak to those many, many, many people, those many of your children around the globe that just see you as distant and angry with them, that want an encounter with you but feel like it's just not for them, that you play favorites. I pray for each soul that is in that place, that they would come to know that every single one, every one person of the 7.2 billion on this planet, each one of them is your favorite. I don't know how that works out, but I know that it's true. And so I pray for those souls who are still seeking connection with you. That you would answer the cry of their heart. That you would reveal yourself to them, that you would manifest yourself to them. I pray for increased dreams, visions too. We love the big encounters with you. And so we want them too. So open up the ears of our heart, the eyes of our heart, open up all five senses for us to be able to hear your voice, to be able to connect with you. And Father, I pray too that we wouldn't just keep this to ourselves, that we would help other people connect, that you would create a burden in us to help other people connect with you, because that's what evangelism is all about. It's just helping people connect with you. It's not trying to convince people of our belief system. It's just introducing them to the Father who loves them and helping them connect to the one person who has always loved them. Thank you for your love. Thank you for all that you have done to enable us to have an intimate relationship with you. And just continue to deepen that intimacy. And I thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
So we want to thank you, Tammy, for coming and doing a great job. A great job. Those of you that are watching, this will both be archived, and it is also available on our YouTube channel now, which if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. And these Friday nights are part of our ongoing Bible study series, just designed to encourage people to step into a deeper relationship with Jesus and love him in deeper ways. So we appreciate you joining us tonight, being part of this. And also as a reminder that starting next week on Friday morning is the Prosperous Soul Conference, which will be next Friday and Saturday with Stephen DeSilva. You won't want to miss that. If you haven't signed up for it, go to the website and get registered. We look forward to seeing you. The Lord bless you, and thank you for being at the house.